What's up, guys? So, I know on this channel before I've mentioned this idea of feeling like the universe is speaking to you. One thing will happen, and you're like, it might just be a coincidence, but when it becomes a pattern, sometimes it feels like there's a lesson for you to be learning from it, right? And I recently realized that it feels like I keep having the same experience of attracting incomplete packages, and they fall into one bucket or the other. The last year or so, for the first time, have started attracting guys who seem like they'd be the right fit for partnership. Like they're serious guys who have their stuff together, and I see in them qualities emotionally that feel like a fit. So emotionally, mentally, intellectually, there's a connection. But then once it gets to the physical, it's severely lacking. Like we're just not compatible. And this has happened to me now several times over the past year or so. On the other hand, the guys that I'm very sexually and physically drawn to for a hookup, let's say, they will satisfy me in that way, but there's nothing else there. And a few days ago, I had a hookup like this, so it's fresh on my mind, but I was so physically, it was like magnetic. And what's interesting too is when you can tell they feel that lust towards you as well. And that's been happening for me again the last year or two, that I've attracted guys that is just a physical connection, undeniably, the compatibility is there, but they're like a shell of a person. There's nothing else there. So for example, the guy that I recently had a hookup with, again, physically 10 out of 10, but he refused to kiss. Like when I would try to kiss him, he would kind of move his face away. To him, it was too intimate, I guess. Kissing is reserved for intimate connections. So of course, for me, how's that supposed to make me feel? That's not a great feeling. But I walked away from this encounter like feeling satisfied. For that day, I felt good. I felt like I had this release, which I think is important. But then over the next 2 days, I was like, this keeps happening. That the guys I'm physically drawn to don't fulfill me, can't fulfill me emotionally, mentally, and so on. I can tell it'll always be transactional. But then on the other hand, it's also frustrating when somebody seems perfect and then you get to the physical and it's not only not ideal, but it's just not a fit. Like I am open to, I'm malleable to, you develop something together, intimacy is built, all that stuff, I get it. But also some people you're just not compatible with. And so I'm now in this time period, this era of my life where it just makes me want to completely disengage with dating, because I don't like that feeling of excitement and then you're like, oh, it's almost there, but it's not there, and I can't make this turn into something it's not. So I'm trying to make sense of this pattern that I'm detecting in my life. I'm not sure if it just means that I'm supposed to disengage for a while from just connecting with guys in general and let things flow and stop trying to make something happen and stop trying to look. I mean, I've already at least done the first step, which is getting off the apps, as I brought up recently, because I just start to feel really drained, and that's not good for me energy wise, but also just mentally. To constantly sort of cycle through people that aren't the right match is not a good feeling. I also don't like potentially making them feel bad and making them realize, in the same way that I don't want to be rejected, I hate going through that process with somebody of having to have that frank conversation or just even having to deal with it. My first instinct was actually that I thought maybe it's a sign I'm too focused on the physical attraction and that I should invest more in the emotional connections, because that emotions for me affect libido, affect physical connection. So it can like manifest something. But I've made videos on this channel before about how I've sometimes tried to force that. And then I end up just being even more frustrated because I feel like I wasted this guy's time, I wasted my own time. And I found that if you don't really have that spark in the beginning, that excitement, that physical attraction, you're kind of like, the odds are stacked against you. I feel like it's just easier if there's already something there to begin with. And then you see if there's something emotional. But either way, it just feels like an incomplete package, right? Physical fun can only be so fun for me if there's no emotional connection. And the emotional connection can only go so far if I'm quickly uninspired by, if I can't be like aroused by the person. Have you guys ever gone through this? Is this like a common thing that people go through? I feel like the stereotypical character, like on Sex and the City, Charlotte, how Charlotte's always looking for the perfect guy, and then she ends up getting with this guy who treats her like royalty. He just came in a totally different package than what she expected. The difference there, if I remember correctly, was that she's not inspired by him physically, but he knows how to throw it down in bed. And that's a whole different thing. If that happens to me, I'm open